Hi everyone, DT here. Welcome to the Super Little Challenges podcast, available wherever you get your pods and right here on YouTube. My guest today is communication coach Brenden Kumarasamy. Brenden specializes in all things communication, and if you're interested in being a better communicator, whether it be professionally or personally, this is the episode for you. Brenden offers a whole heap of really cool insights. It was great to chat to him. I got a lot out of it, and I hope you do too. Enjoy this one, guys. Let's get into it. And so today we're speaking all things communication, and I wanted to just start with you with a quick experience from my first time public speaking to kick things off.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love that.
So my first time public speaking, essentially in my final year of high school, I had a project to present, and it was before my presentation was coming up before the school holidays. And I was freaking out so much, and I was so fearful of this presentation that I didn't want it to ruin my school holidays. So I went up to the teacher and I was like, please, I begged her. I was like, please just let me do it before we go on midterm break so that I can get it out the way, so that my holiday, so I can relax on my holidays. And so she sympathized with me, and she let me do it on like the last Friday. And I basically got up there, took a deep breath, put my head down, and just went through the presentation at a million miles a minute just to get it over with, said thank you, breathed again, and it was done. Now, since then, I've actually learned to enjoy it more. It's not something I do very often, but creatively and so on, I've obviously gone down a whole different path, and I have learned to enjoy it in recent times. But that was my teenage experience of public speaking, and basically, it's a lot of people fear it more than death.
It's true.
So having you here today is awesome, and I'll just kick it off by saying, what do you think the biggest challenge with public speaking is?
Yeah, absolutely, DT. And thanks for sharing your story as well. That was awesome. Yeah, definitely the high school part really resonates with me, because you're right. The biggest challenge is really around motivation, right? Because when we think of communication in general, we see it like a chore, right? We see it like something we don't want to do. We see it like doing the dishes. And the reason we see it like doing the dishes is exactly the same story that you just told. High school is where we learn how to speak. But the problem is all those presentations are mandatory. We don't wake up one morning and say, hey, DT, you want to get breakfast and present all day? Nobody says that. We're always switching up presentations. We never get to pick something that we like. And worst of all of those presentations are tied to a punishment. Super fun. If you don't do well, you lose 30% of your grade. Not a fun place or the right environment to practice. That's why, to get the motivation, DT, the question I always like to ask people to reflect on to get us started is, how would your life change if you became an exceptional communicator? Really start to think about that question, because that is the question that will shift the way that you look at the world, and also focus on the benefits of communication, like impact and making a difference for others.
We're talking communication as a whole, right? Not just it's how you present as a whole. It's not necessarily just your voice. It's how you hold yourself in all kind of realms of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. The way I see it is communication and public speaking is one and the same. It's so much more than just giving a presentation or speaking on a stage. It's every interaction we have with the human being. It's the way that we order food at a restaurant. It's the way that we meet strangers at a park. It's the way that we meet new people when we travel. It's the way we talk to our families. And once we realize the correlation that exists between communication skills, strong communication skills, and really just living a fulfilling life, that's when we can start to really have those real conversations and get the results we're looking for.
What led you to this point in your own journey now, where you're kind of specializing and focused on communication?
Yeah, for sure, brother. So when I was in university slash college, I used to do these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing sports like rugby or cricket or footy or some other sport you probably wouldn't see me playing, I was doing presentations, and that's how I learned how to speak. I did them competitively. But then as I got older, I started coaching people who were younger than me in that competition program because we didn't really have a communication coach, and I wasn't one either. I just knew how to speak, but I didn't really know how to coach it. But we didn't have a better alternative because we didn't have a budget. So I just started helping them out. And that's how I learned how to not just speak, but also coach other people how to do it. And the reason that I started Master Talk, honestly, DT, the YouTube channel specifically, is because I realized that, everything that I had in my head wasn't available for free on the internet. Because on the internet, you hear advice like, oh, you should be yourself, follow your dreams. I was like, well, this is nonsense. So I started making videos in my basement. One thing led to another, and here we are today.
There's obviously a lot to it, but what are the key principles to good communication?
Absolutely, brother. So I'd say the first one is definitely motivation, creating that desire within us to even master in the first place. So don't just write down the question, everyone who's listening. Be sure you're reflecting on it too. How would my life change if I became an exceptional communicator? So we start to reflect on that. It gets us more excited about doing the next thing. I'd say the second piece to that is figuring out what is the easiest possible win that we can get with our communication to build momentum up really quickly. And my version of that looks like the random word exercise. So the random word exercise is very simple, DT. All you got to do, pick a random word like phone, like screen, like shelf, like wall, and create presentations out of thin air. So what I always like to say is if we can make sense out of nonsense, we can make sense out of anything. So it's the same thing with the random word. If you talk about avocado toast for like 60 seconds, you could talk about anything for 60 seconds. And that's really the goal. 5 times a day, 5 minutes a day. And every day, if you do this for a month, you'll have done it over 150 times, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And that's really what separates the best from everyone else, is that consistent practice every day. And then the third principle I would share, which is not super rocket science here, is the best way to speak, drum roll please, is to speak. I know it's like mind blowing, but it's true. The best way to speak is really to go out there and practice. So the more you practice the random word, as an example, we got a bunch of other strategies, but that one's the easiest one. You'll get the results you're looking for. And I'm happy to demonstrate. Feel free to give me a word and I'll just do it.
Banana.
Absolutely. So DT did not give me the word banana prior to this recording. So here I go. It's Sunday morning and I'm enjoying a beautiful breakfast. Whether it's my waffles that my mom graciously made with syrup on top, to the chocolate chip muffins that I get to eat every day. Yeah, I'm probably not the healthiest guy out there, but there's one thing that I do that I always eat and make time for that is healthy. And it's got a ton of potassium. And you see a lot of monkeys eating it. And they're bananas. Bananas are such a versatile fruit, DT. They allow us to not just enjoy the first morning of our life and remind us that we're actually doing something right with our bodies, but they're also a way to enjoy the intricacies of food. Whether it's a raw banana that you just kind of peel off, or whether it's just a snack that you have on a day-to-day life. But what's fast about the banana closest off, DT, is that we all peel it off in the wrong way. We always do it in the wrong way with the stem at the top. And the people who are successful in life are the people who do the opposite. So don't follow the norm, follow the exception. So there you go.
So you're saying peel it from the opposite end.
Yeah, that's what most people do. That's the right way to do it.
That's awesome. If I didn't expect to learn that today. So you're genuinely into what if I say I'd given you a word that you're not particularly into, like it's not an interest or not something you do, like what if it's a food that you don't like? And you still have to come from a genuine place, right?
I mean, it's not really like, I don't like that word. I don't think it's more about coming from a genuine place, DT. I think it's more about having fun with our communication. Like everything I shared wasn't true. Like I don't have waffles for breakfast. I think it's more like just fun. I think that's what's missing in our communication, is that a lot of us overthink this. We go like, oh my God, like what if what I say is not true? What if this? And I was like, but just do it. It's kind of like when we played sports as a kid. Is it about hitting the right ball in the right angle? No, it's about having fun with your friends. That's how you learn. And then you get better over time.
I agree with you. I just as long as people know you're coming from a true place and they're not being hoodwinked.
I think what I would say is like, because I feel a lot of communication coaches, they just overcomplicate things. Like for me, it's all about doing the harder thing. Like think about the incredible show that you have, right? The podcast, the way that you're leading with your voice. If you could talk about avocados outside of these interviews, like these interviews would be a joke for you. Like you'll walk into these and you'll have such an easy time. And I think that's what's missing is a lot of us were anxious about the boardroom. We're anxious about big presentations at work. Whereas if we optimize for the harder thing, because the random word exercise is so random, like you're talking about oranges and pineapples and things that make no sense. When you go back to something that you really want to share with the world, right? Whether it's around communication, that's when the you get the result.
It's actually cool. I have a close friend. It's a little sidetrack, but I was in an extremely boring meeting once, and I was just literally ticking down the minutes. And a friend who I'd met for the first time, him and I were clearly the only ones who weren't into this meeting. And out of nowhere, he decided to entertain himself in exactly that fashion because he got asked a question about paper clips. And so he went on exactly, and the manager was dead serious about the paper clips, like where they were stored or something. and he went on a spiel exactly like what you're saying for a minute or so about the importance of paper clips. And I was the only one in this meeting that really we were grooving the same tune. And he just brought such a light to the situation. And I was like, I want to be friends with that dude, you know?
I love that. That's such a perfect story, right? I think it really demonstrates what we're talking about. It's just the willingness. Like think about like your friend, right, who did a great job in that meeting. Let's say he practices the random word exercise a bit every day, and for the next random situation that's going to happen at work, he'll be able to process that correctly and get even better results than the great ones he's already getting.
I think there's a fear. People just have a fear sometimes of saying the right, of having to say the right thing or the wrong thing and trying to be perceived a certain way. But this idea of just chill out a bit, you know, like it's not, just throw it out there. People can handle it, you know, it doesn't have to be so. Sometimes I feel like, is that going to be controversial or whatever? But I think you can actually, you can take it there.
Absolutely. I mean, I've made so many mistakes in my career. DT, when I started making YouTube videos, I was in my mother's basement, like on the phone. Like you can go watch my first videos. It took me so long before I could get to the level to be a guest on people's shows. It took a lot of reps, a lot of practice. And I think a lot of us were scared about saying the wrong thing. We're scared about the judgment around it versus just having fun, enjoying the process. And then you blink and you realize you're a lot better than you used to be because you just practiced a little bit consistently over time.
How important is, well, I guess, relaxation and breathing is really key, right? Especially in a big auditorium scenario. Or what would your advice be to somebody who feels like they're bombing mid? I guess specifically in a presentation setting, if somebody's just really sweating, do you think they need to take a step back or just recompose themselves, or what's the best advice there?
Yeah, for sure, brother. So I would say a couple of things. The first one is, fear is always going to be there. Even with me, by the way, even if I'm the communication person on the call today, speaking with you, I have a ton of fears too. I mean, I started Mass Talk at 22. I mean, I was coaching a lot of executives who had worked longer at the company than I was alive. So there's definitely that part. The second part is even with, the level that we're at, there's always going to be a level that scares us. Let's say we're having lunch, right, in Hamburg, and Elon Musk calls me and he goes, "Hey, Brenden, I like your YouTube channel. Can you come coach me? I'll pay you whatever you want." I'll probably shit my pants. Yeah, I'll probably be a little bit worried. There's always a level where we're always going to be fearful. So the advice I would share there, DT, is the fear will never leave us, but rather our focus should be that the message needs to be more important than the fear. So the reason I pressed record the first day wasn't because I thought I could coach executives how to speak. It was because I felt really bad for the 15-year-old girl who couldn't afford a communication coach, or the 13-year-old boy in Australia or some part of the world who can't afford a coach. That's why I made YouTube videos. And then it led into what it is today.
For people who are more shy or introverted, what's the advice there? If somebody's naturally an introverted person, but they feel like they've got something to say.
Absolutely, brother. You know what I would say on introverts? This has actually been the most fascinating myth of my career, that introverts are worse communicators than extroverts. And I actually found it to be the opposite. Being an extrovert myself, I can confidently say introverts are better communicators than me. And the reason is for three things: that it's just introverts aren't aware of it. The first thing is that introverts are way better at listening, DT, in the sense that it just happens. If you play out the math, they just speak less, so they listen more, so they adapt faster to their audience. Whereas I had a lot of trouble listening to people, and I still do. I'm still working on it. I was definitely a lot worse back then, so it's harder for me to adapt to what the audience is saying. That's the first piece. Oh, go ahead, jump in.
We'd probably agree that listening is just as important, if not more important. There's a lot of unspoken stuff, and being comfortable within silences.
Oh yeah, and you actually brought up the second point, which you nailed on the head there, DT, which is pausing. That's the second thing that introverts do way better, because since they speak less in the way that they communicate, it's a lot easier for them to pause, right? Take a beat whenever they're speaking. Whereas when you're an extrovert like me, especially in the early days of my career, you always want to fill up the space. Kind of when you're in a bar, you're always like, oh, but what did you do last weekend? So introverts don't have that problem. They're very strong at that as well.
What do you recommend? It's kind of a weird question, but like with things like movement and your body and hands, the hands are a factor. So yeah, do you suggest being conscious of that, or just like now I'm just letting them do what they naturally want to do, or can that be distracting? I guess it depends on what sort of scenario we're talking, but.
Yeah, what I would say is when it comes to body language, DT, I think it's important, but I don't think it's the priority, in the sense of communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? So one of those balls is eye contact, another one is smiling, facial expression, another one's body language, another one is filler words, vocal tone variety, and the list goes on. So instead, what I would say is the goal is to pick up one ball at a time. And for me, body language is definitely not the first ball. The first ball is probably going to be the random word exercise. We're willing to do that a few times a day. The next ball is going to be, are we even smiling in our presentations? And then it's going to be eye contact, etc. And then as we get better at all those other things, as you can notice, since you can see my face on this one, now for those who are listening just to the audio, then you gradually can add the body language later. But I don't think it's the first thing people should focus on, because you can get away without using a lot of body movement.
Again, it's how much do we control and how much do we allow to just, it goes back to what you're saying about, yeah, some people say, oh, just be yourself. But yeah, that doesn't necessarily work technically or for the type of medium. So I guess it's finding a middle perhaps between.
100%. You definitely nailed that in the sense of, the problem with be yourself is like, well, what do you do with that piece of advice? Like, what's the next step? What's the next move? Just being the same, doing the same thing that we did yesterday. So I'm definitely with you. I think the key here is really ordering. We start with doing a few things and then it builds up momentum over time, kind of like a sport. You wouldn't take a basketball and throw a baseball bat at it, right? You would take the basketball and try and shoot it in the net until you get it in, and then you'll try, okay, let's try close up, and then let's try a long shot, and let's try something different. So same thing with communication, where we start the random word exercise. I think that's the easiest thing that people can do, and then it's other exercises that build on top of that one to make themselves better.
Yeah, cool. So where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Great conversation. So I would say two easy ways. The first one is definitely the YouTube channel. People can check out Master Talk in one word. Then they'll have access to hundreds of free videos. And the second one, for those who want to attend a free training and get some coaching, you can go to rockstarcommunicator.com. We do a free training every few weeks over Zoom.
Very cool. Very cool. Feel it's very short. I would like to perhaps touch base again in the future, but I'm definitely going to take that little exercise. I'll let you know how I go with that.
For sure, man. Keep me posted, brother.
And it feels very short, but lots of nice little communication gold in there. So thank you very much for that.
Of course, man. Thanks for sharing your story at the beginning too. That was really powerful.
Nice one, Brenden. Thank you.